Moving on to James Harden missing the start of camp. So he misses media day, misses day one of practice, and then he shows up yesterday. Now, he's in this interesting predicament where he very much wants to get traded, specifically to the Clippers. But he just wants to get out of Philly, right? And he wants to be in a better situation where he has a better chance to get a long-term deal, which he probably even identifies now that after everything that went down with Philly last summer, he's probably not getting that from Philly, right? And he also knows that Daryl doesn't want to trade him for pennies. Daryl wants to get the best return possible to maintain their chances to win the title. But James is in a predicament because as of right now, his value is at an all-time low. He actually had a very good regular season last year. He's a good regular season player. We're going to get to that in a second. But when he got to the postseason, he had 2 outstanding games and then a whole bunch of duds. And the entire league saw that. And it came after one of his more impressive regular seasons as of late. It was basically his best regular season since leaving Houston in terms of overall winning impact, right? So given that predicament, he went from there to having his worst postseason, which is a clear indicator to the rest of the league that he's probably not going to become a deeply impactful playoff player at any point in the future, especially at his age now. So his value is in the gutter. We know Daryl Morey has an algorithm that spits out a championship odds number. And he will not make a trade unless that trade increases those odds for him. And chances are that algorithm values James Harden quite a bit and it's going to be difficult for him to find matching value. So the predicament for James is he wants out, but the only way he's getting out is if he increases his trade value. And the only way he's going to increase his trade value is by playing regular season basketball because James Harden is not one of the 25 best players in the league, but he is a top 25 player in the regular season because he led the league in assists last year and he was over 60% true shooting and he was outstandingly efficient in pick and roll and in ISO. And if you need a ball handler to eat innings in the regular season, you can't do that much better than James Harden. And so the predicament is he wants out, but he's got to play for the Sixers in order to get his value to the point where he's going to get out. And so I thought the no showing the start of camp was just a clear message. It's not like he was I'm putting my foot down and I'm not coming. And then 2 days later, he's all right, never mind. That's not what happened. He no-showed as a clear message I'm going to come in here and I'm going to participate, but I need to make it clear that I want out. And I think that was his reasoning there. Now, zooming out, is it a good idea? Hell no. James Harden has a massive, there's a massive chasm between what James Harden thinks his value is around the league and what it actually is. He's moving like a superstar when he's not a superstar anymore. And that's something he's got to figure out. But I think that's what his reasoning was in this situation. He wanted to make it clear to the front office, I don't want to be here, but I will participate because I know it's the best vehicle with which to get me out of this particular situation. All right, let's move on to the mailbag. So, first question. Out of all of the contenders, which team do you think has the most and least pressure to win the championship? Very good question. I would say that the least pressure is on the Lakers and the Warriors. Why? Because all those guys have won a bunch of times. The Warriors core 4 has won 4 titles each. Steve Kerr has 1 million championships. LeBron James has 4 championships. Anthony Davis has a championship. Darvin Ham has a championship as an assistant. Those guys just in general, there's not that much hanging in the balance on what happens this year. If at this point, if Steph or LeBron wins a 5th title, it's just gravy for them, The most pressure I'd say is on the Bucks and the Celtics. For the Celtics, they've had the most talented roster in the league for years, and they just made 2 splashy moves this summer that even increased their talent to another level above there. And Jason Tatum is reaching that point where it's okay, dude, you're entering into your late 20s. If you're one of these top of the league guys, you got to show it. So there's a lot of pressure on Boston. And then with Milwaukee, especially with Dame at his age and everything that they spent to get Dame into this particular situation, there's a lot of pressure there as well. Giannis won a championship in 2021 and pretty quickly relinquished the top spot in the league. There's pressure on him if he wants to be the perennial top, best player in the league type of player that we all thought he would be. He's got to go snatch that again. So there's a lot more pressure on the Bucks and Celtics. One last thing I wanted to say here too is I'm not sure if you saw the quote from Drew Holiday's wife on social media yesterday, Just talking about how frustrating it was for them to find out they were getting traded with basically no warning. And one day after Drew Holiday did an extensive interview saying that he wanted to retire a Milwaukee Buck. And like, I hope that just gives you guys a better example of why I defended Damian Lillard during that trade saga. I will never understand people going out of their way to go to such great lengths to defend a billionaire owner. I don't understand what the end game is. Like, they don't feel the loyalty to you as the fan. Billionaires move teams out of cities. They ship players off regardless of the personal relationship just because they want to do what's best for them. Like, I'm not saying don't support the team. I'm just saying, like, don't go to such great lengths to defend the owner. Like, everyone's like, oh, we don't owe Dame anything. But Dame did stick through and demonstrate loyalty to a team. He was making that commitment. And what I've always really struggled with is this idea that when the player contract takes place, and again, this is a mutual bargaining, it's a collective bargaining agreement. The teams and the players are agreeing to do business together. There's a player contract between the two, but I will never understand, like, player is mandatory, has to demonstrate loyalty to that contract, but hey, if so-and-so becomes available, let's ship him away. That to me is an ass-backwards way of looking at it. And that is why I will defend players who view their player contract as a vehicle to get other places in the league, especially when they have demonstrated loyalty the way Drew Holiday did. Again, like, I agree. Daryl Morey doesn't owe James Harden anything. He can ship him wherever the hell he wants because James Harden has demonstrated that he will do the same thing in return. He has no loyalty to them. But when a player does demonstrate that, especially over an extensive period of time, the way that Dame did, I'm going to be like, yeah, man, you probably should send him where he wants to go. And I hope that Drew Holiday situation kind of gives you guys an understanding of, like, there's a human element to this. Like, it does rip a family up and take kids out of schools and take kids away from their friends and take, a mom away from her friends and that family away from all their ties in that community. It is more complicated than just, oh, you signed a deal, you have to stay here. Like, that's an overly dogmatic way of looking at it, in my opinion. Next mailbag question. What do you think about Steve Kerr saying that Klay Thompson will play more 4 this year, specifically on the defensive end? Do you think Klay can guard bigger guys and be efficient in that role? So here's the thing. Obviously, Klay Thompson at the 4 makes you really small. Klay Thompson is a good defensive player, but I do think that he'll struggle physically to hold up in a position like that. If you go small, though, it can work. You just have to be really damn good at playing small. That's the element that people forget. If you play small and you can't stretch teams out and score easily and run up and down the floor in transition, then you're going to get your ass kicked by all of the size disadvantages all over the court, right? But if you do space a team out and you do pick them apart on offense and you do get up and down the floor in transition, then your positives outweigh the negatives that come from the size disadvantages. That's really all it's about. Can Klay Thompson play the 4? Yes, as long as Chris Paul, Steph Curry, Andrew Wiggins, Klay Thompson is completely unguardable. And that's going to be the key. So as long as the offense clicks at the level it needs to click, it can work. But they need to be damn good. And that's the thing. Like, the Warriors small ball teams were really, really good small ball teams. Last year's Warriors team had to go small against the Lakers, and they weren't very good at it. That's going to be the difference.